What terrifying truth lurks in the Jermyn family bloodline? And would you dare face the horrifying secret of your own ancestry? Welcome to Classic Storytime Hub. Tonight's story is Facts Concerning the Late Arthur Jermyn and His Family by H.P. Lovecraft, a classic story reimagined and retold for the modern age.
Life has a way of hiding truths that are far more terrifying than we can imagine. Beneath the surface of everyday reality, glimpses of something dark and inhuman peek through, fragments of knowledge that, if fully understood, could drive a mind to madness. Science teases at these truths, revealing horrors that mortal brains were never meant to comprehend. And if we truly knew what we are, perhaps we would do as Arthur Jermyn did. One night, Arthur took a tragic and final step. He drenched himself in oil, lit a fire, and vanished into the flames. No monument was raised, no urn preserved his ashes. All that remained were a few cryptic papers and a small, mysterious box, an object from Africa that haunted those who discovered it, leaving them desperate to forget. For Arthur Jermyn, it was not the oddity of his own appearance that drove him to despair, but the secrets contained in that box. Arthur had always been a man of learning, a poet, a scholar, a seeker of knowledge. His blood carried it. His great-grandfather, Sir Robert Jermyn, had been a distinguished anthropologist, while his far ancestor, Sir Wade Jermyn, was one of the earliest explorers of the Congo, chronicling its tribes, wildlife, and hidden relics with obsessive detail. Sir Wade's fervor bordered on madness, and his book, Observations on the Several Parts of Africa, had been ridiculed for its wild theories about a prehistoric white civilization in the heart of the Congo. By 1765, his obsession had cost him his sanity, landing him in a madhouse at Huntingdon. Madness, it seemed, ran through the Jermyn bloodline. They were a small family, and Arthur would be the last of them. From the outside, the family had always seemed slightly wrong. Portraits of their ancestors once displayed distinguished faces, but with Sir Wade something had shifted. His stories of Africa were both fascinating and horrifying, filled with trophies and curiosities that most men would never dare collect. Even his wife's seclusion reflected his peculiar life. She was said to be the daughter of a Portuguese trader in Africa and never truly adapted to English ways. And so the stage was set for Arthur. The mysterious African box arrived, and the culmination of generations of curiosity, obsession, and madness pressed down upon him. What he saw inside was more than his mind could endure, a truth too dreadful to survive. She had arrived from Africa with her infant son, accompanying Sir Wade on his second and longest voyage. She even joined him on his final expedition, never to return. Rarely seen by anyone, not even the servants, she carried an air of violent singularity. During her short stay at Jermyn House, she lived in a distant wing, attended only by her husband. Sir Wade himself was obsessively protective. When he returned to Africa, he allowed no one to care for his young son except a loathsome woman from Guinea. After his wife's death, he assumed full responsibility for the boy, guarding him with almost unnatural devotion. It was Sir Wade's stories, particularly those told in drunken revelry, that convinced many of his friends that he had lost his mind. In the rational, orderly 18th century, it was dangerous for a scholar to speak of the Congo's wild and shadowed lands, the colossal walls and vine-choked pillars of forgotten cities, endless stone steps spiraling into darkness, treasure vaults hidden from human memory, and catacombs that stretched into unfathomable depths. Worse still were his tales of living things within those ruins, creatures born of jungle and ancient stone, monstrous hybrids that no naturalist could believe. He spoke of them with shivering enthusiasm, especially after his third glass at the Knight's Head Tavern, boasting of the horrors he had witnessed, the ruins he had roamed, and the secrets no other man could know. His obsession finally led him to confinement in the madhouse, yet he felt little regret. Curiously, he seemed almost relieved. Home no longer offered comfort, and the tavern was his only refuge. 3 years later, he died. Philip Jermyn, his son, was equally unusual. Physically resembling his father, he was coarse in manners, unintelligent, and prone to sudden violent outbursts. Small but unnaturally strong and astonishingly agile, he inspired fear and avoidance in all who knew him. Though he escaped the madness that haunted the family, he carried a different kind of menace, a raw, unpredictable force that lingered in the shadow of the Jermyn legacy.
12 years after inheriting his title, Sir Philip Jermyn married the daughter of his gamekeeper, a woman rumored to have gypsy blood. Yet before their son was born, he abandoned domestic life to join the Navy as an ordinary sailor, adding scandal to the family's growing notoriety. After the American War, whispers placed him aboard a merchant ship trading along the African coast, renowned for feats of strength and daring climbs, until one fateful night he vanished off the Congo shores, swallowed by the dark waters. The peculiar legacy of the Jermyn family took a darker, deadlier turn in his son, Robert. Tall and strangely graceful, with an almost Eastern elegance despite subtle irregularities in his form, Robert began life as a scholar and investigator. He was the first to study scientifically the vast, eerie collection of relics his grandfather had brought back from Africa, turning the Jermyn name into one celebrated in both exploration and ethnology. In 1815, Sir Robert married the daughter of the 7th Viscount Brightholme. 3 children were born, though the eldest and youngest were never publicly seen, hidden away because of grievous deformities, both of mind and body. Burdened by sorrow, Sir Robert threw himself into his work, undertaking 2 long expeditions into Africa's interior. In 1849, his second son, Neville, a man repulsive in temperament, combining the surly nature of Philip Jermyn with the haughty airs of the Brightholmes, ran away with a vulgar dancer. Yet upon his return the next year, he was forgiven. He arrived at Jermyn House as a widower with a small infant, Alfred, who would one day father Arthur Jermyn. Friends believed that these accumulating misfortunes had shaken Sir Robert's mind, yet the true catalyst may have been something far older, a fragment of African legend. The scholar had been gathering myths of the Onga tribes, hoping to shed light on Sir Wade's tales of a lost city inhabited by bizarre hybrid creatures. Some eerie consistency in the old papers hinted that Sir Wade's madness had been stoked by the local folklore. On October 19, 1852, Samuel Seton, an explorer, arrived at Jermyn House carrying notes from the Ongas, legends of a gray city ruled by white apes under a white god. He likely shared details that would never be fully known. What followed was sudden, horrifying, and incomprehensible. When Sir Robert emerged from his library that day, the world had changed forever. The explorer's corpse lay strangled, and before anyone could intervene, Sir Robert had annihilated all 3 of his children, the hidden twins and Neville, the runaway son. A single afternoon had seen the end of a generation, the culmination of a legacy steeped in madness, obsession, and a dark African mystery that no living man could survive. Neville Jermyn met his end defending his own 2-year-old son, apparently targeted in the mad, murderous design of his grandfather, Sir Robert. Sir Robert himself lingered for 2 more years, trapped in silence and repeated suicide attempts, until a sudden apoplexy claimed him in the confines of his barred room. Sir Alfred Jermyn, heir to the baronetcy before he even turned 4, showed little interest in the dignity of his title.
By 20, he had abandoned formal life to join a troupe of music hall performers, and by 36, he had left his wife and child behind to travel with a wandering American circus. His demise was grotesque and unforgettable. Among the exotic animals he worked with was a massive bull gorilla, lighter in color than most, unusually docile and popular among the performers. Alfred became obsessed with this creature, spending long hours staring into its eyes through the iron bars. Eventually, he convinced the circus managers to allow him to train the gorilla, astonishing everyone with his apparent skill. But one fateful morning in Chicago, during a rehearsal of an intricate boxing routine, the gorilla struck harder than expected, injuring Alfred. What followed is a story rarely recounted. Witnesses were shocked as the baronet screamed in a shrill, almost inhuman voice, seized the gorilla with both hands, slammed it to the cage floor, and attacked its hairy throat with a frenzy that defied reason. The animal recovered swiftly, but by the time anyone intervened, the man who had once been Sir Alfred Jermyn was unrecognizable. Arthur Jermyn, son of Alfred and a music hall singer of unknown origin, was left in the care of his mother. When Alfred deserted them, she brought Arthur to the decaying Jermyn house, now abandoned by the rest of the family. Though funds were meager, she ensured her son received the best education her means allowed. Arthur was unlike any Jermyn before him, a poet, a dreamer, sensitive to beauty in a world that offered little. Neighbors whispered that the hidden Latin blood of Sir Wade's Portuguese wife might have manifested in him, though most dismissed his refinement as the odd influence of his music hall mother. What made Arthur's character extraordinary was the contrast with his appearance: awkward, uncouth, almost grotesque, a gentle soul trapped in a rough shell.
Most of the Jermyns had always carried a subtly unsettling aura, but Arthur's presence was something extraordinary. It was impossible to pinpoint what he resembled exactly. His strange facial angles, the unusual length of his arms, and that indefinable expression gave a chill to anyone meeting him for the first time. Yet it was Arthur's mind that redeemed him. Brilliant and accomplished, he graduated with the highest honors from Oxford and seemed poised to restore the family's tarnished intellectual reputation. Though a poet at heart rather than a scientist, he was determined to continue the study of African ethnology and antiquities, working with the extraordinary, if bizarre, collection amassed by his forebear, Sir Wade. He often lost himself in thoughts of the prehistoric civilization his mad ancestor had believed in so fervently, weaving story after story about a silent jungle city hinted at in Sir Wade's wilder notes. The strange, half-imagined race of jungle hybrids described in those writings stirred in Arthur a mix of fear and fascination. He sought to separate fact from legend, using data gathered by his great-grandfather and the explorer Samuel Seton among the Onganis. In 1911, after the death of his mother, Arthur Jermyn resolved to follow these investigations to their ultimate conclusion. Selling part of his estate to fund the journey, he outfitted an expedition to the Congo. With the help of Belgian authorities, he secured a group of guides and spent a year navigating the Ongani and Kaliri regions. What he discovered exceeded his wildest expectations. Among the Kaliris, he met an aged chief named Mwano, a man of extraordinary memory and intelligence, deeply versed in local legends. Mwanu confirmed every tale Arthur had heard, adding vivid accounts of the stone city and its white apes. According to the chief, the Gray City and its hybrid inhabitants no longer existed. They had been destroyed long ago by the warlike Nabongus. The tribe had razed the buildings, killed the creatures, and seized the worshipped object of their obsession, a stuffed white ape goddess, believed to have once been a princess among these beings. What these ape-like creatures truly were, Mwanu could not say. He only knew them as the builders of the ruined city. Yet through careful questioning, Arthur gathered a detailed and chilling legend of the stuffed goddess, an artifact that would soon prove far more than a story. The legend spoke of the ape princess, who had once taken as her consort a mighty white god who had come from the west. Together they had ruled over the city for long years, until the birth of their son prompted their mysterious departure. Later, the god and princess returned, but upon her death, he had mummified her body and enshrined it within a vast stone temple where it was revered. Then he vanished, leaving the relic behind. The tale, however, had many versions. In one, nothing further occurred. The stuffed goddess simply became a symbol of dominance, coveted by any tribe that could claim it, which explained why the Nabongus had carried her away. Another told of the god's return and death before the enshrined body of his wife. A third told of the son's return, grown to manhood, or apehood, or godhood, yet utterly ignorant of his own identity. Arthur recognized the imaginative flourish in these accounts, the embellishments woven by generations of storytellers eager to magnify what may have been mere fragments of truth. Yet Arthur Jermyn had no doubt about the reality of the jungle city Sir Wade had described. Early in 1912, he came upon the ruins himself. While the city's legendary size may have been exaggerated, the scattered stones proved it was no ordinary village. The expedition was too small to explore the single passageway that seemed to lead into the mysterious vaults Sir Wade had mentioned, and no carvings were discovered. The white apes and the stuffed goddess were discussed with every native chief he encountered, but it was ultimately a European who promised to take the next step. Monsieur Verhaeren, a Belgian agent stationed at a trading post in the Congo, claimed he could locate and recover the fabled relic. With the once mighty Nabongus now subservient to King Albert's government, little persuasion would be needed to part them from the grotesque deity. When Arthur set sail for England, he carried with him the thrilling expectation that within months he would possess a priceless ethnological treasure, one that might finally confirm the wildest tales of his great-great-great-grandfather, tales that until now had seemed the mere fevered imaginings of a mad explorer, but which were about to be revealed in all their horrifying reality. Arthur Jermyn waited patiently for the promised box from M. Verhaeren, all the while immersing himself in the manuscripts left behind by his mad ancestor. With each page he felt a growing kinship with Sir Wade, tracing relics of the explorer's life both in Africa and in England. Tales of Sir Wade's mysterious reclusive wife were plentiful, but no tangible trace of her stay at Jermyn House remained. Arthur pondered why this erasure had occurred, concluding that his great ancestor's insanity was likely the cause. He remembered that his great-great-great-grandmother had been the daughter of a Portuguese trader in Africa. Perhaps her practical outlook and superficial understanding of the continent had clashed with Sir Wade's obsession with the interior, a contradiction he could never forgive. She had died in Africa, possibly carried there by her relentless husband, determined to prove the truths of his fantastical tales. Yet as Arthur reflected on these events, a smile touched his lips. How futile such musings were, a century and a half after the deaths of these extraordinary forebears. Then, in June 1913, a letter arrived from M. Verhaeren. The Belgian agent had found the legendary stuffed goddess. He described it as an extraordinary, almost incomprehensible object, something beyond the judgment of any layman. Whether it was human or simian, only a scientist could say, though its imperfect preservation, battered by time and the harsh Congolese climate, would make such determination difficult. Around the creature's neck hung a golden chain, bearing an empty locket with intricate armorial designs, a keepsake, no doubt, taken by the Mbongus and hung upon the goddess as a charm. Verhaeren, fascinated beyond humor, remarked on the contours of the mummy's face, suggesting it would provoke equal wonder and dread in Arthur. He promised that the object would arrive roughly a month after the letter,
carefully packed for safe delivery. On the afternoon of August 3rd, 1913, the box finally reached Jermyn House. It was immediately taken to the large chamber where Arthur's collection of African specimens, amassed by Sir Robert and himself, was housed. What followed is best told through the accounts of the servants and the later examination of objects and papers. Of all the stories, none is as detailed or as chilling as that of aged Soames, the family butler. According to the trustworthy butler, Sir Arthur Jermyn sent everyone out of the room before opening the dreaded box. The faint sound of hammer and chisel echoed immediately, showing that he wasted no time. For a while, nothing was heard. How long, Soames could not say, but certainly less than 15 minutes later, a scream pierced the air. It was a scream unmistakably his own, full of terror and agony. Moments later, Arthur emerged, racing frantically toward the front of the house, as if pursued by some unspeakable horror. His face, already ghastly in repose, now bore an expression beyond human comprehension. Near the front door he seemed to hesitate, then turned and fled down the stairs to the cellar. The servants stood frozen at the top of the steps, helpless and terrified. Only the acrid smell of oil rose from the darkness below. As night fell, a rattling sounded at the door connecting the cellar to the courtyard. A stable boy glimpsed Arthur, glistening head to foot in oil, slipping like a shadow across the moor. Then, in a moment of ultimate horror, all watched the end unfold. A spark ignited, a flame roared, and a pillar of human fire shot into the night sky. Jermyn House was no more. Why Arthur's charred remains were never collected is explained by what lay in the box. The object itself was nauseating, a withered, eaten-away figure, yet unmistakably a mummified white ape of some unknown species. Less hairy than any known variety, and shockingly closer to humanity than anyone dared imagine. Two details made the horror unmistakably personal. First, the golden locket around the creature's neck bore the German coat of arms. Second, the uncanny suggestion of M. Verhaeren that the shriveled face might resemble someone was horrifyingly, undeniably true. The face was that of Arthur Jermyn himself, great-great-great-grandson of Sir Wade Jermyn and his mysterious wife. The revelations of Sir Wade's African expeditions, the legends of the White God, and the Ape Princess all converged in this ghastly truth. Members of the Royal Anthropological Institute destroyed the mummy, and the locket was cast into a well. Some of them later refused to even admit that Arthur Jermyn had ever existed. And so the final terrifying legacy of the Jermyn family vanished into silence, leaving only whispers of madness, obsession, and the horror that had lurked in their blood for generations.
And thus the story ended. If you liked this journey into the worlds of classic literature, do not forget to support us by subscribing so we can tell you more. And hey, if there's a classic tale you'd love to hear told in this suspenseful style, drop its name in the comments below. Your suggestion might be our next chilling adventure.